Hello everyone! We have prepared a story for you about 10 famous women who were involved in the trade of illicit substances. These ladies were truly dangerous. Jemeker Thompson, an African-American woman who later became known as Queen Pin, was kicked out of her own home by her parents as a teenager. The girl quickly found her way and decided to make a living through what she thought was the simplest way possible – selling drugs. She soon found an older companion named Anthony M. Duffa Mosley, who became her guide into the world of drug trafficking. Together, they organized a successful cocaine business in Los Angeles. Working closely together, they decided to get married, and their only son Anthony was born. Business was booming and their enterprise expanded. The couple slowly but steadily climbed to the top of the cocaine empire during the crack cocaine boom of the 1980s. However, tragedy struck when the patriarch of the criminal family died and the widow had to take control. Surprisingly, Jemeker handled her new responsibilities quite well and even excelled. She established new connections and offered her products throughout the United States. Around that time, after mourning her deceased husband, Thompson entered into new relationships. However, her chosen partner turned out to be overly law-abiding and disloyal to Queen Pin's activities. As a result, this young man with the notorious nickname Cheese betrayed her to the authorities, forcing her to hastily leave her established territory and go on the run for 2 years. She was eventually arrested in 1993 when Thompson returned to Los Angeles to attend her son's 6th grade graduation ceremony. Law enforcement officers were already waiting for her there. She was arrested, brought to trial, and sentenced to 15 years in prison for drug trafficking. While behind bars, Thompson found faith and became an extremely religious woman. Queen Pin was released in 2005, having served 13 years in a maximum security prison alongside another drug baroness, Griselda Blanco. Today she serves in an evangelical church, writes memoirs, and repents for her past actions. The future Indian drug queen Shanishkala Patankar was born into a poor family. She was the youngest of 6 children and the only girl. She had to work hard from a very young age, selling milk to survive in the slums of Worli. The transition from selling milk bottles to selling drugs occurred when she realized that the latter was much more profitable. Shanishkala began trading low-grade heroin and hashish, quickly earning a dubious reputation. Her criminal business expanded, bringing her tremendous profits throughout the 80s and 90s. At some point, the drug baroness moved out of her estranged husband Ramesh Patankar's house and started living with her sons. It was during this period that she was accused of murder. Her own nephews, Manish and Vivek Mazgaonkar, filed a case against Shanishkala, accusing their aunt of setting their mother on fire alive in 1993. Later, the Mumbai police described this murder as a result of rivalry, since the deceased woman was also involved in drug trafficking and posed a threat to Shanishkala's position. However, this crime could not be proven. When selling poor-quality heroin became tiresome, Shanishkala switched to selling methadone. She was one of the first to realize the potential of this synthetic white powder, resembling cocaine but much cheaper. Not only was it easier to obtain methadone compared to other addictive drugs, but until February 2015, it was also entirely legal and not listed as a prohibited substance in India under the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. Shanishkala was implicated in several high-profile cases where authorities found multi-kilogram batches of methadone, some indirectly pointing to her and her connections within the police. However, her unequivocal involvement has not yet been proven, and the verdict has not been reached to this day. Enedina Arellano Félix was born into a family of Mexican drug traffickers, so no one asked her the question, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" At the age of 17, she even skipped the carnival in Mazatlan after learning that her 2 brothers, Ramon and Benjamin, were wanted by the United States and the Mexican government. During this time, her older brothers worked for Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, who eventually provided them with a corridor for drug transportation to Tijuana, Baja California. Enedina enrolled in a private university in Guadalajara, where she earned a bachelor's degree in accounting. By the mid-1980s, she was actively applying her acquired knowledge in the family business, but she was never considered a significant figure in the Tijuana cartel by the authorities. Throughout most of the 90s, her 6 brothers led the Tijuana cartel, while Enedina advised and helped them launder criminal money. However, after the downfall of the cartel's financial mastermind, Jesus Labra Avila, in 2000, Enedina assumed that role. According to the Drug Enforcement Administration, she became the first woman to be in charge of the financial side of such a major drug cartel. For some time, she even led the cartel after her brother Eduardo Arellano Félix's arrest in 2008. With most of her brothers either arrested or killed, Enedina managed the financial aspect of the business, controlled alliances, and co-led the Tijuana cartel with Luis Fernando until his capture in 2014. Her strong connections with drug suppliers in Colombia helped sustain the organization. Melissa Margarita Calderón Ojeda, known to the authorities and the criminal world as La China, led a gangster cartel with over 300 followers and is responsible for 150 murders in the past 10 years. She began her criminal career in 2005, working for the Damaso cartel, believed to be an offshoot of the powerful Sinaloa cartel, led by the notorious Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Soon, Melissa Calderón became a prominent figure in the Mexican Pacific drug cartel, also known as the Sinaloa cartel, which was the largest supplier of heroin and methamphetamine to the United States. Despite the overwhelmingly male-dominated environment, she climbed the career ladder and became one of the most influential women in the cartel. To achieve this, she had to display qualities that are typically atypical for women, being as ruthless and cold-blooded as male criminals. But then, desiring to further pursue her extraordinary ambitions, she formed her own gang of several hundred hitmen who obediently followed her orders. As a reward for loyalty and successful missions, she rewarded them with bags of cocaine. Authorities believe that she and her gang are behind a series of murders in Baja California, the second largest state in Mexico. One of Mexico's most infamous criminals was captured after her boyfriend and accomplice, known as El Chino, informed the authorities about her to secure a more lenient sentence for himself. In reality, he was simply frightened by his girlfriend's bloodthirstiness and decided to turn her over to the police. The notorious drug lord La China was arrested in 2015 at Los Cabos airport. She is currently held in Mexico's main prison. Griselda Blanco was born and raised in the impoverished atmosphere of Colombian slums. From an early age, she engaged in theft, participated in kidnappings, and committed murders. She married a small-time criminal, but the family life didn't work out, despite having 3 children. After their divorce, Griselda orchestrated the killing of her first husband. Her second husband, Alberto Bravo, was involved in drug trafficking, and it was through him that she entered this criminal business. Setting up base in New York, they established a transit point for cocaine shipments into the United States. Taking a creative approach to their work, Blanco designed lingerie with secret compartments for smuggling drugs, and their family business thrived, enveloping New England cities in a tight web. Due to cocaine distribution charges, the family had to return to Colombia. In that year, she came to the conclusion that her husband had been stealing money during the course of their family business, and the resulting shootout between spouses led to Bravo's death. Since then, Griselda earned the nickname Black Widow, which she further confirmed by ending the lives of 2 more life partners. By the late 1970s, Blanco had moved to Miami, where she gained a reputation as the cocaine godmother. Eager to eliminate competition, she displayed astonishing ruthlessness, plunging the city into a pit of violence. The period of her active operations became known as the Cocaine Cowboy Wars. It is alleged that she ordered dozens and even hundreds of murders, many of which were carried out by motorcycle gunmen, a practice she is believed to have pioneered. Additionally, several murders were committed in broad daylight, including a shootout at a shopping center in 1979. Relying on violence and cunning, Blanco became one of the richest drug traffickers in the world. According to law enforcement reports, she imported over 3 tons of cocaine into the United States annually, earning approximately $80 million per month. Griselda lived a lifestyle befitting a duchess, with her surroundings immersed in luxury, indulging herself in everything. She didn't hide her connection to the criminal world, even naming one of her sons Michael Corleone. But everything comes to an end. At one moment, Blanco was arrested. Found guilty in 1985, she received the maximum prison sentence of 15 years, although it is said she continued to run her drug empire even while incarcerated. While serving her sentence, the prosecution attempted to prove her involvement in numerous murders, but none of her former mercenaries and gunmen could provide sufficient testimony. In 1998, Blanco eventually pleaded guilty to some crimes in exchange for a reduced sentence, and 6 years later, she was released and deported to Colombia. In 2012, at the age of 69, Griselda Blanco was killed by a motorcycle hitman as she left a butcher shop in Medellin. It's hard to imagine that a beauty like Angie Valencia could be a drug dealer. Besides, she didn't enter the business out of a bad life. With her stunning looks, Angie had been popular with men since her youth. At the age of 21, she won the Coffee Queen beauty pageant and began her modeling career. She was invited to photo shoots and fashion shows, and in 2007, Angie was recognized as one of the world's top models. However, the earnings of a model weren't enough for her. In 2005, Angie caught the attention of a businessman named Nicolas Gualcho, known as Monster. He was involved in drug trafficking, which didn't bother Angie. She enjoyed the luxurious lifestyle, and the modeling business could never bring her the same income as managing the drug trade. Angie ended her relationship with the influential boyfriend and started her own venture. Valencia established a modeling agency which served as a cover for her business. She hired models who essentially acted as drug couriers. The agency would book business-class tickets for the girls, avoiding thorough inspections of their carry-on baggage. For one such trip from Argentina to the UK, the girls received $5,000 each. Angie Valencia's drug business lasted for 2 years and earned her nearly $1 billion. It all came to an end when one of the models had her suitcase checked at the customs and 55 kilograms of cocaine concealed within dresses were discovered. While Valencia's accomplices were being arrested, she managed to escape. She changed her name, obtained new documents, and altered her appearance. The drug baroness was on the run for about a year, and after her arrest, she refused to admit guilt. Surprisingly, Angie was sentenced to just 6 years and 8 months in prison, and later she was even released early. Sandra Avila Beltran, also known as the Queen of the Pacific as she called herself, was born into a family of drug traffickers and followed in her parents' footsteps. In her youth, she began collaborating with major drug dealers and engaged in complex deals. Often police officers who attempted to arrest members of the Beltran clan themselves became involved in drug trafficking. Among these officers were both of Sandra's husbands, who abandoned the pursuit of drug mafia and became accomplices of the Queen of the Pacific. Like Angie Valencia, Sandra Beltran skillfully used her looks to achieve her goals. Additionally, she rarely took on the execution of tasks herself. More often, it was her relatives who were involved in drug transportation, while Sandra managed them. In 2007, the drug baroness and her boyfriend Juan Diego Ramirez were charged with drug trafficking and money laundering. While Ramirez was not so cautious, Sandra had everything planned in advance. Serious charges couldn't be brought against her for a long time since she could only be indirectly linked to all the crimes. Her downfall came from private property. Sandra owned 225 properties in Mexico and a fishing boat, which the police intercepted in 2001. It was on that boat that Beltran transported 9 tons of cocaine from Mexico to the United States. During the trial, the drug baroness denied everything and claimed to be a simple housewife involved in closing sales. But this time, Beltran's tricks didn't work. She was sentenced to 3 years. In 2010, the case was reviewed, and the Queen of the Pacific was released only in 2015. Mexican girl Estrella Ermila Ramos grew up accustomed to a life of luxury and the attention of her father, Juan Johnny Ramos, who as a police officer was involved in the drug trade and monitored drug trafficking. After Johnny's deliberate murder by members of a cartel, his daughter and wife continued his business, establishing cocaine deliveries and making it a family affair. The newly minted drug baroness managed to operate in this manner for about 2 years until Estrella's mother, Estella, was caught red-handed by law enforcement. She was sentenced to 4 months of imprisonment at the Mazatlan prison. How she managed to secure such a lenient sentence remains a matter of speculation. But her mother's arrest didn't faze Estrella, as the piles of cash proved to be a more convincing argument for her to continue the profitable business. While her mother served time in prison, Estrella continued to trade and handed out cash bribes to the cops until there was nothing left to give. In 2004, just a month after her mother's release, Estrella was stopped while driving, charged with drug distribution, and sentenced to 40 months of imprisonment. After her release from prison in April 2008, Estrella opened a small salon called Star Beauty. Estrella means star in Spanish, while her now retired mother spends her days watching soap operas. Estrella's 11-year-old daughter pronounces the names of Mexico's top drug barons with the same dizzying excitement that American girls her age talk about Jonas Brothers. It seems that the family still has everything ahead of them. Veronica Rivera de Vargas was the wife of one of the leaders of the Bogota Mafia, Julio Cesar Vargas Torres. He was likely killed in retaliation for kidnapping the leader of another criminal group. In the early 1970s, she became involved with one of the future founders of the Medellin drug cartel, José Gonzalo Rodríguez Gacha, known as El Mexicano. Afterward, she became the first cocaine queen, eliminating the entire family of her main competitor with the help of Gacha. In the rural region of Acacias, she established a true drug empire, including runways, airplanes, cocaine warehouses, and luxury cars. It was said that her collection of Chinese porcelain and glassware had no equal in all of Latin America. But on February 11, 1983, law enforcement seized her on the farm Las Cabanas in her drug empire. It was reported that when she was captured, she was sleeping on a pillow made of 35 kilograms of cocaine and holding a Colt 45 pistol. Although her trial did not go smoothly, as documents from her case began to disappear and judges faced intimidation, she lost her crown as the cocaine queen. On November 3, 2009, a court in the 30 million city of Chongqing in central China sentenced 46-year-old drug baroness Caipin to 18 years of imprisonment. The enterprising lady boss operated over 20 dens organized in hotels, nightclubs, and tea houses. She owned several luxurious villas, drove a prestigious Mercedes-Benz car, and maintained a harem of 16 young men for sexual pleasures. It was revealed that since September 2004, Caipin's gang had illegally earned over 2 million yuan, $292,000. In addition to the income from running dens, the criminals made money from drug trafficking. They first offered drugs for free to get people hooked, and then demanded money from those addicted to the potion. The drug baroness showed no mercy to her enemies. For instance, those who revealed the whereabouts of her syndicate were ordered to have their arms and legs severed. 21 other individuals involved in this case received prison sentences ranging from 1 year to 13 years. Among the convicted were both members of the gang and corrupt officials who turned a blind eye to Caipin's crimes in exchange for bribes. In particular, former Deputy Police Chief Guo Shen and policeman Gen Yong received 13 and 12 years of imprisonment respectively. What conclusions can we draw? As it turns out, among the leaders of criminal organizations and drug cartels, one can often find representatives of the fairer sex. But that certainly doesn't mean they end up well. We bid farewell until the next interesting episode. Subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. Bye-bye for now.